Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth and final event in our month-long Mind Your Mind campaign focused on chef mental health. This is a Chef Network webinar in partnership with BWG Foodservice. Today's event is a conversation with Chef Niall Hill and Dietitian Paula Mee on food and mental health, how what we eat affects how we feel. Today's session will last approximately 1 hour. All attendees will automatically be muted throughout the session. We will have time for questions at the end of the webinar, and if at any time during the session you would like to submit a question, this can be done via the questions function in your toolbar. We will then answer any audience questions during the Q&A session at the end. I will now pass you over to Carla Murray from our partners BWG Foodservice for a quick welcome message.
Thanks, Rebecca. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carla Murray, and on behalf of myself and all my colleagues in BWG Foodservice, we are proud to partner with Chef Network for Mind Your Mind Month. Minding your mental health is extremely important, so I'm delighted to introduce Niall Hill and Paula Mee, who will be discussing food and mental health this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carla. Thanks, Rebecca. Hey, Paula.
Hi there, Niall. Can you see me?
No, I can't see. I can hear you, though.
Okay, I think I've frozen something. There I am.
Now I can see you. How are you keeping?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm very good, thank you. First of all, just want to welcome everyone to join us on this talk today. It's great to have Paula and me with us today. I think this issue is really current and relevant in our current times. So, hopefully we'll give you some insight into our own personal experiences and also some expert advice. And also we'll have some time at the end to answer some questions that you might have. So, Paula, how's the love? I've been good, yeah. I've had a really strange year. It's been almost like a roller coaster of a year. I've had ups and downs, if I'm being really honest. Like the first lockdown for me was actually okay. I was just in the process of finishing my master's. I was finishing my thesis and I was also starting a new job. So for me, the first lockdown, I was already comfortable with, almost self-isolating and staying at home because I was studying and all the time. So it didn't really affect me that much, but but starting a new job was really kind of strange. I started the April 1st, so we were just started in the lockdown, so I never got into the office. My onboarding was supposed to be done in San Francisco for a week, and that was done online, which was kind of strange because I hadn't really done anything online before, and I'm not really kind of a techie person. Which was really kind of interesting because support was there. But what I found kind of really difficult was taking a job where I was leading a team but trying to have an impact online, and I really kind of struggled with that. I almost felt that I was being interviewed every day, and I really kind of suffered from anxiety because I had to look after this team, and I had to try and make an impact. And it wasn't a job that I was going into where I was going to fix something. I mean, the food program in Airbnb was absolutely amazing. The foundations that Morris left behind them were great. So I felt the pressure and the anxiety of having to make it, immediate impact with a new team. And that was really strange. So the first little part was, it was okay. We were working on concepts of reopening, and we thought at that stage that we'd be back in within a couple of weeks, but that kind of didn't really happen. So all of my interaction with the team was online, and and I was kind of fairly anxious about that. So that's kind of my first experience with the first lockdown, and my own feelings and how I was coping was kind of really strange. So from a person,
I was going to say, did you make the dreaded banana bread? Talking about mood food.
No, I didn't make the banana bread, but we did have workshops online with the team. So we did go down the route and we made sourdough because it was something that wasn't made in-house. But there was, you know, there was a fermentation program within Airbnb, which is absolutely brilliant. So they, you know, so they made their own kombuchas, kefirs, sauerkraut, kimchi. So there was really good fermentation program. So we kind of wanted to kind of take that a little bit further and have a look at sourdough. So we did go and do the route of the sourdough, but we never made banana bread.
Right, I'm sorry I didn't get the call to taste any of that. I'm a big sourdough bread fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it must have been a bit, that's interesting, the first reaction to the lockdown, because a lot of people I met were terrified the first time around. You know, they were really in uncertain, territory. And even though you had a new job and, you know, you were studying and trying to finish your project, wow, you remained unscathed in the first lockdown. Whereas I would have seen in my clients a lot of gut problems, you know, a lot of associated anxiety, gut related issues, a lot of young people looking for consultations because of that, you know, maybe flare-ups of IBS, you know, and I thought it was quite interesting. The beginning of the lockdown, the first lockdown, was completely different to what we're seeing now, where people are so jaded and complacent about, you know, the restrictions sometimes, you know, that, or, you know, they're compliant, as we all are to the extent that we can be, but, you know, the edge has gone a little bit, you know. I think it's more frustration I'm feeling now. Yeah, but I mean, the first time around, did you not indulge in things like alcohol, you know, to quell that uncertainty or anxiety? Because I know a lot of people were reporting drinking more, you know, it's great being off work, but like, when are we going to get back, you know? And it was all just really unusual, you know. But I think you were kind of medicating, self-medicating.
Yeah, like for me, I wouldn't be a big drinker, you know, because I like to try and keep myself quite healthy, but so I didn't really kind of turn to alcohol. But I guess for me, after the first month, then there was rumors within Airbnb that there was going to be redundancies, and that certain people might lose their job, and the uncertainty and the fear around that, you know, was causing anxiety around the team, because this team had been together since the start, and we're really, really close. And when you're in the kitchen, you know, they're part of your family. You probably spend more time with your colleagues than you do with your family members. And I had a real sense of that I needed to look after these guys. So you know when you're on an airplane and they tell you, if in the event of an accident, that you put on your own oxygen mask first. Well, that's where I felt I needed to look after me first before I could look after the team. And as part of the masters, I really kind of had a look at the Mediterranean diet, and I kind of adapted that as more of a lifestyle for me, because I knew that, you know, with anxiety can lead into depression, and I didn't kind of want to go down that route. And like everyone else, you know, I had fears. You know, I have a family, I have a mortgage. What am I going to do now? And for me to take that job within Airbnb, I had to fully commit. So I was consulting at the time, so I gave up all my clients. I passed my clients on to colleagues. So the fear of being made redundant and not even starting was kind of huge for me. So I kind of had a look at that and how I could actually change that. So I needed to look after the team. So we started to develop workshops online of what we could do to utilize our time, and what I could do to potentially pass on a new skill and knowledge to the team. So we started what's really kind of close to them is sustainability and food waste. So we started to look at ingredients that could possibly they were challenged in using. So the likes of, one example would be, they use a lot of onions. So we had a lot of onion skins. So they were dehydrating the onion skins and making powders. But I kind of wanted to take that a little bit further, because I started to research what onion skins and the benefits of and health benefits of onion skins with the flavonoids. So I wanted to develop the drinks program a little bit further. So we came up with we were making bouillons, or we were doing new product development at home. So we were all making kind of new dishes out of the onion skins. But we developed like a bouillon, a bit like what you'd see in the supermarkets. You know, the Knorr stock cubes, the jelly ones.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So what we done was, one of the dishes we came up with was an onion skin and seaweed shiitake bouillon that was thickened with agar. So agar is a natural vegetable gelatin, but it's really high in dietary fiber. So what I was trying to do is take sustainable ingredients, but add in benefits to it. So adding in fiber, for your gut health. So they were really interesting projects that we were working on, and I felt I was passing on a skill to the guys in the kitchen. And then we got the dreaded news that we were up for redundancy, and unfortunately, the Airbnb made 25% of their workforce redundant, and because the food program was a variable cost, the food team were made redundant. So after 3 months of going from a high of landing, a really great job with a great platform for me to build on, to basically having nothing. So I would say the summertime, even though I had loads of free time, I couldn't enjoy it because I had that fear and that anxiety. What am I going to do now? Where am I going to get a job? There's no jobs. Where am I going to put the new skill that I've learned, and how am I going to put that to use? So I really started to focus on ingredients that I felt could help with my own mental health, omega-3s, and I started just to kind of introduce it a little bit more into my own lifestyle at home, and particularly for my girls, of introducing how they were feeling, because they also had the fear of online teaching. And they struggled. My eldest daughter, she struggled with that a little bit. She doesn't like it. She prefer face to face, and and so do I. I mean, I would much prefer face to face, because you get to read people, and you get to know how people like to how they tick, how they like to be managed, and what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and how you can help them. So summer was a little bit strange for me.
But it does sound like the Masters in Culinary Nutrition came at the very right time for you in a way, because it allowed you that creative space as well. You've been deep diving into the research and, learning about flavonoids and, plant components that can impact your health. So it sounds like it was a great timing in a way. I know, obviously.
I think for me personally, Paula, that I've over 30 years experience in the industry, and I've always felt that I've done really good food, I've bought the best ingredients, I've married them well, and I have used very little processed foods, but I didn't understand the science behind it, and I didn't understand the makeup of what each ingredient could actually its function within your body. So even though I knew kind of I had a misinterpretation of carbs as well,
Right. In what way? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, is too many carbs is bad for you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
There's some negative press about it, and I didn't really understand it, if I'm being really honest. So for me, this was a natural progression, and I felt that I really wanted to change. I really want to change my lifestyle. I wanted to change me as a chef, and almost redevelop myself again. To be honest with you, I was busy. I was involved in the business for 16 years, which I was part owner, but I was bored, and I really wanted to kind of have a look at how I can have an impact in my professional life, but also in my family life, with like my dad would have passed away about 10 years ago from lung cancer, and then my mum was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 5 years ago, but which it turns out that she was misdiagnosed, and she has a rare condition called PSP, which they know very little about. And I also kind of want to say, well, as a chef, can I make a difference? Can I help her in some way through nutrition? And I felt I didn't know enough about it. So it was a natural progression for me to develop my skills as a chef, and it's a tool I didn't have. So yeah, it's absolutely relevant. And I have to say, it has really changed my outlook and how I approach food. I've done a lot of
Great.
product development, but I've reformulated dishes mainly on cost. So now what I do is I have a look at taking classical dishes and dishes that I really like, but I reformulate them using nutrition as my guideline. So how can I add in certain micronutrients into this dish? How can I increase the dietary fiber in that dish?
Yeah.
And how does that impact the overall nutritional value of something that possibly I've been cooking for 25 years?
Yeah, it's incredible. You sound like a model COVID subject. I feel really inadequate beside you because I
Oh, I
have to
don't
say,
think
the
so.
first time around, I self-medicated. I kind of lost my way in terms of what I was doing. Everything was online straight away. It was like this bizarre world that had been turned upside down for me. I have to say, I kind of lost myself a bit in that. And I think I definitely experienced a bit more anxiety than I would have normally if I'd managed my mind, But I think as the COVID restrictions went on and on, I suddenly realized, okay, this is up to you. Like, it's up to each and every one of us. How do we manage stress? How do we manage our minds? How do we stop catastrophizing and, I suppose, thinking in the black or white realms that we often do, which makes things far more worse than they actually are, potentially. How do we stop living in the future and live in the present? I actually did find I had to do things like yoga, a lot more frequently, because the first time around I was just in a frustration. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't participate in my yoga class. And for me, it was all about the connection with others. But then I realized after, month after month, I realized, you know what, you're going to have to go to your mat yourself. This is your stuff, and you've got to manage it. But, I think that everybody had a different journey through it. It's fun, it's amazing. But I certainly saw a lot of people grapple, with different things at different times, issues like that were related to anxiety and how that manifested in the gut symptoms that they saw. Now, of course, in the third lockdown, it's all about weight and people, setting New Year's resolutions, being really tough on themselves, saying, right, no alcohol, no chocolate, no this, no that, all of these restrictive diets. And you mentioned carbs. I mean, the amount of carb bashing that goes on, and it's still there, that we shouldn't be eating carbs, like in terms of the microbiome and, our gut health. And I always say the gut health is very close to the seat of our immune health. It really is connected, and in turn connected to our behavior, our mood, how we're able to cope. So the inputs into the gut and what we eat are absolutely vital. But, being terribly restrictive is just really not the way, because cutting out all carbs, of course, can starve some of the good bacteria in the microbiome. And we know from the research, now that it is about a diverse number of foods in your diet, which in turn, improves the diversity of your microbiome, the different microbes and species that are growing there, because they all have different functions. And so the more fibers, as you said, and the more prebiotic foods that we can include, like berries and whole grains and legumes and beans, and that all lends to a better landscape in the gut, which in turn helps us to cope and be more resilient in the face of challenge, But I think people kind of think, oh, it's now just about weight, and getting off the COVID stone. Whereas I would much prefer people to be a little bit more gentle with themselves and say, let's just be discerning about the carbs that we eat. Instead of white rice, can we include more wild rice or brown rice? Or, let's go and look at a seed like quinoa, which is higher protein, maybe more satisfying. And, I love the plant proteins because not only do they have fiber, as you mentioned, which is vital, but they also have, amino acids and a full complement when you combine them. So we know, like, for example, tryptophan, the importance of that in producing serotonin, which is the feel-good hormone, the neurotransmitter, which really helps us to feel better, calmer, more resilient. Like, that is dependent on the foods that we eat. We need to eat those amino acids. And it's not just about eating turkey. you know, because it has a high tryptophan level. It's about including whole grains as well, would you believe? Because the whole grains actually help the tryptophan, you know, across the blood-brain barrier, you know, because tryptophan has to compete with a lot of other amino acids, you know, and whole grains are very useful for not just their fiber and their microbiome benefits, but for a whole host of other reasons as well. But yeah, so it's funny, you know, we went from banana bread to people, you know, studying mad, crazy, restrictive diets in January, which is starving the very good bacteria that they need to grow, you know, that they need to allow thrive for, you know, for coping with what we're coping with at the moment.
Yeah, I think for chefs in particular, Paul, I think like how do you fill you know, a 12 to 15 hour day? It's
Yeah,
complete. It's really hard.
yeah,
It's that sense of purpose, and it's the anxiety and the fear of the unknown. And I to be honest with you, like I did struggle with that because I'm used to being busy. And having all this time on my hands, it's like, okay, so, you know, yeah, what am I going to do? But it's trying to just actually get started and doing something. And for me, you know, what worked was kind of just writing up a do list, and if it was doing one or two things every day, it meant I had a purpose. And kind of self-worth, you know, and that's kind of what worked for me. So I mean, I had a catalog of recipes that I wanted to basically rewrite and
right.
rechange. You know, but I didn't try and do the whole block of work in one time. I just kind of said, okay, every day I'm going to do 2 or 3 recipes, and I gave myself a list so I didn't get bored doing it. And it gave me something constructive. But what I really enjoyed was the online sessions with the guys in the kitchen.
Yeah,
And I think in particular, I was really feeling it for them because they were coming out of you know, a company that really, when I say they were in a bubble, you know, the conditions, the facility of the kitchens were just top class. The facilities were top class.
yeah,
You know, the rate of pay was absolutely brilliant. And I was trying to prepare them for the industry, because when we heard the news that we were being made redundant, I go, oh my God, how am I going to prepare these guys? You know, so I started to do a lot of workshops with them online. You know, in particular around costs, because I think you know, money in general can cause anxiety. You know, of, well, geez, how am I gonna pay my bills? How am I gonna pay my mortgage? How am I gonna pay my kids' school fees? And it can cause a lot of stress within the family home. But you know, so for me, I was stressed out to death, you know.
yeah. I mean, having to fill 16 hours, you know, and for very busy people like chefs who may not have time to develop hobbies outside of the kitchen, you know, your life is very much surrounded by food and, you know, the creativity that goes hand in hand with food. I'm sure it was difficult because you can only do so much exercise, an hour of running, an hour of yoga, you know, you can't do 16 hours of exercise. But yeah, I suppose that really, that is a challenge. And I think for very busy people as well, it must have been hard to stop. But we do know that in stillness comes creativity. You know, that if we
Yeah,
can learn to pause, and not feel we have to do.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Was there any little bit of you that enjoyed, like, because I have to put my hand up and say, I absolutely loved not having to drive, you know, to, you know, a talk in Limerick or a talk in, I'm not a great driver. I don't really enjoy driving. I know, you know,
Yeah,
lots of people do, but I don't. So, you know, there was a part of me that was thinking, oh, this is great. You know, I don't actually have to drive, particularly in January, you know, when it's wet and miserable, you know. But it's tough. I mean, a 16-hour day to fill, that is a very tough prospect
yeah.
unless
It's
you can
it's
find that space for yourself to allow yourself to totally relax, you know, and
yeah.
be creative or
I
just
think
be.
I think you know, obviously spending time with family, you know, like sitting down having breakfast every morning, it's something that, you know, I probably haven't done all my career, because, well, the last 16 years, you know, with the Butler's Pantry, it was an early start. Like, you know, it was a 24-hour kitchen, so, you know, I was normally in the kitchen by 6 a.m. So I never really had breakfast with the girls. So I enjoyed that part, which I thought was nice. But I was itching to get back out into the industry after, after when I finished in the butler's pantry. I took a break. I was consulting. I was studying my master's. So I was dying to get back into the kitchen, to be honest with you. So yeah, that was there was a real sense of this really disappointment, and the anxiety really kind of kicked in, and I almost felt really bad as well for my peers in Airbnb, because they'd asked me to give up all my clients, and then they were telling me that they were making the whole team redundant. So which must have been difficult on them as well. Probably the hardest part for me was to cut sugar.
I was going to ask you, because you're used to nourishing everybody else, or feeding everyone else.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big sweet tooth. I'm really honest, So
did any of that spill over at home, where you because I know you mentioned making kefir, and I know I used to love listening to all of you guys in class talking about how you looked at fermented foods and pickle foods and all of this. And obviously, live bacteria in food, is a good thing, because, if we're eating live food every day, we can boost the level of good microbes in the gut, which in turn helps us keep the bad ones, under control.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
guess for me, I was playing around with different types of sweeteners, but not necessarily sweeteners. Like I was using black bananas.
Right.
Yeah, so not artificial. So I was using black bananas. So like every morning, we'd obviously make a kefir. I make kefir every day for the kids. Sometimes I would soak some oats in overnight, some raw oats, and then I'd blend it up. But I would never use any sugar in it. I'd use a little bit of black banana. So I started to really kind of have a look at the levels of sugars in desserts. And when you're making desserts with the kids, they want to make brownies and they want to make all nice stuff. But so what I've done is I've really challenged all my recipes that I have, and I've started. And I started this in the butler's pantry about 4 years ago, where we decided that we were going to. I was horrified by the amount of sugar we were buying in. We were buying in a pallet of sugar on a weekly basis. So we decided that we test all the recipes and see what percentage we could take the sugar down. And not only from a cost point of view, but also from a nutritional point of view as well. And it's amazing, how much of a perception you can think that something is sweet or sweet enough, and if you start to kind of gradually, slowly reduce it, your palate slightly changes. And I've done that at home. Now, I haven't cut out everything, but I've certainly had a look at alternative ways of getting that added sweetness. One product that I've used is inulin.
Inulin, fiber,
powder. Yeah. So I've used that in applications that don't need that Maillard reaction, don't need that color. So the likes of like chocolate panna cottas, I've used inulin as almost kind of my sweetener. But I've also had a look at saturated fats as well, and I'll try and take a certain amount of saturated fats out of it as well. So I think it's about challenging the norm, challenging what I'm used to, and seeing if I can add any benefits that are also going to improve my mood, but also improve my overall health, and my family.
You've said I do believe, it's not about kind of throwing out everything we've done to date. It's just a small tweak that can make a big difference. So
Absolutely,
fat is not bad. We need fat. We have to make good cholesterol. We've got to make vitamin D from. We've got to get our fat soluble vitamins into our body through fat. Like it is a myriad of function, especially being part of the cell membrane. So we absolutely need fat, but what people get mixed up in, I think, is they think all fat is bad, whereas it's not. There are very good fats, unsaturated fats, poly and mono. And I think what you're saying is, how do we maybe add a handful of walnuts, which can increase, the monounsaturated fat in the dish, or how do we get in, some sort of a polyunsaturated there to just tweak the balance a little bit so that it is a healthier overall dish. And that is really nirvana, I think. You know, it's holding the taste, because obviously that's absolutely critical. Nobody's going to eat anything, no matter how healthy it is, if it tastes disgusting or if it's not even, you know, tasty. But it is
exactly,
all changes, yeah. So it's, and again, added sugar, like our grandparents ate sugar. There's nothing wrong with sugar, but it's that it's now added to just about everything we buy in supermarkets. That's the difficulty. So if we can look at getting our taste sensations, I suppose, recalibrated to enjoy natural sugars, you know, as nature intended. So natural sugars, you know, that are found in berries, as you mentioned, ripe bananas, you know, a peach, anything, but you know, grapes, and they're all beautifully sweet now. But we've lost that, and a lot. And the research would say that people don't find that sweet anymore if they've been eating a huge amount of intense artificial sweeteners and, you know, a lot of added sugar in their foods. You know.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Well, one other area that I've kind of had a look at as well is in the whole kind of sweetness is vegetable treacle. So I've started to play around with you know, natural sweet vegetables like, you know, peppers and beetroot and carrots, and making treacles out of them and using that as a sweetener as well.
Right.
I know there's still sugars, but I just feel that you know, and then what I do is I would take the pulp from, if I juice them, and I dehydrate that pulp, and I'll add that into salads and whatever, you know, so that I don't miss out on the fiber. So yes, but it's really interesting. I think I find it fascinating that, you know, that we can do this, and I think it's crucial that you know, that chefs kind of upskill and really kind of have a look into the nutrition, because I feel that that's the future. I also feel that, you know, chefs have such an important role in the overall population's health, and like the impact that chefs can have. And I always feel that it's a missed opportunity by the government, that, you know, that chefs aren't working closely with the likes of yourself, Paula, and dietitians, because you know, for a chef, their number one priority is flavor. And years ago, there was a perception that healthy food was flavorless, but I think that's changing now. And if you can add nutrition that's good for your health, you know, mind and body, I think that's a powerful tool to have in your arsenal.
Absolutely. And like that, you know, as a dietitian, I remember, you know, going on a sort of culinary placement, if you like, and that was an interesting one. I think it might have been in the second year of my dietetics diploma, but I elected to go to where do they have that Southampton, that yacht, the Isle of Wight. Sorry, I went to the Isle of Wight.
Okay.
It was really with a view to sailing. I just wanted to sail for the summer and not really work that hard. But I ended up going to a hotel instead. But you know, it was amazing. The placement was so much better because a lot of my dietetic colleagues were just peeling potatoes in large hospitals because we didn't have any culinary skills. We couldn't offer anything. You know, we didn't know and understand about fusion flavors. We didn't have those skills. So, you know, a placement for a dietitian in a hospital kitchen is a waste of time. You know, they need to actually be working with chefs to be taught about, you know, how do you make tasty food that is nutritious. And therefore, there's an overlap, a huge overlap. You know, we should be working more closely together, definitely. But I really do believe as well that I've learned a lot from the likes of yourself, Niall, and your colleagues on the culinary nutrition course. It's been a great experience for me too. And there's so much talent there. And it's not acknowledged the way it should be. I just feel that it isn't, and it should be. But
I totally agree with you, Paula. I think you know, for me personally, it was life changing. You know, I approach food in such a different way, with a different thought process than ever before. And I think, you know, that happens naturally as you get a bit older. You think, okay, now I'm gonna have to start looking after my old body now. But
and don't forget the brain. You know, we're always talking about the body, but like when you think of the brain, which is the control center of your thoughts, your breathing, your heart, you know, the beating of your heart, everything. Like and we never really talk about nutrition in the brain, even though it has more connections between the neurons than stars in the universe, you know, and it weighs 3 pounds, and I think it uses 25% of your energy, you know, something ridiculous like that. So it is a very hungry organ that is on 24/7. And we forget, we always think about, you know, when we're feeding ourselves, we think about energy, you know, the production of energy in the muscle, you know, the citric acid cycle, the ATP, you know, we always automatically go into the organs in the body, but we have to remember that the brain is absolutely there and connected to the gut, and to the other systems, the circulatory system, every system. So if we have inflammation because we've dysbiosis, if we've got, you know, an imbalance in the microbiota or the microbiome, we're going to see inflammation in the body. And if it's in the brain, we can see cognitive, you know, impairment. We can see an increase in risk of things like dementia, you know, and that doesn't have to be. So I think I love the idea of the way you said that, you know, tweaking your recipes now, seeing what you can do in terms of reducing added sugar, but finding maybe more natural alternatives. Because natural alternatives, I know, like I've heard some of my colleagues saying, but sugar is sugar, you know, it all is broken down to glucose and it affects your blood glucose. But actually, I look at it a little bit differently, in that I don't believe that we should just come down to calories or glucose. We should look at what else, you know, a natural sugar contains. So, for example, maple syrup might have some nutrients because it comes from a natural source, as opposed to, you know, an artificial sweetener or a lump of sucrose, which is table sugar, you know. So I think it's not black or white. It's and there's no right or wrong in this, but I think the ethos should be, how can we help people to enjoy food? We don't have to give out to them when they're baking banana bread every day, but, you know, can we maybe help them nourish themselves with easy, simple recipes now that the lockdown's on? You know, be good to themselves. Like I, for example, said, right, I'm not going to do alcohol anymore. I gave it up, I think, in October, and I think I might have had 1 or 2 weekends where I had something at Christmas, that was it. But like, I know for me, because I'm liable to go into a downward spiral if I drink alcohol, because it is a depressant, that it's not a good idea, because it's just too handy to do that at home because you've got an excuse, you know. See, somebody comes in and goes, you know, I'm having a bad day or whatever. Well, they don't even come in the door anymore. They're just mooching around the place, opening the glass of wine before you know it. I kind of found, I don't know, have you ever heard of these things? I think maybe, I'm sure the people on the botanical course would know about them, but they're adaptogens. Ashwagandha. I'm sure I'm not saying that right, but have you heard of ashwagandha? I can't say that right, but it's a bit like lemon balm or valerian. It has this really soothing effect, and they're natural botanicals found in plants. And I suppose for me, I'm just interested in just what's there naturally in foods that can help to calm us, relax us, still give us the enjoyment around food, you know, that we need. Because, you know, part of us at this stage, I suppose, you know, there are many people who maybe, you know, leaning on food too much, you know, that instant gratification and that soothing you get from food is not a great motivator to change. You know, it is more a motivator to becoming overweight and obese. You know, so you know, finding things that are helpful as opposed to difficult at home, and I suppose setting boundaries, you know, or maybe looking at your habits and things like that is something that we could all do as well. Just the way you've decided, okay, you know, you're not going to be torn down by the fact that you had this amazing job and then within 3 months you lost it. You know, you ended up having creative workshops and imparting some of that knowledge that you had to other chefs, lifting their energy, which was brilliant, you know.
And to be honest with you, Paula, it's something I love doing. I love passing on my knowledge, and if it benefits somebody, it's absolutely, I'm over the moon. It really kind of gives me that sense of, you know, that sense that you get of being in service, and that adrenaline rush, I get a real buzz out of it. But you're right when what you're saying about, you know, habits, breaking habits as well. And I, you know, I can see it myself, like that. You could go down one route and try to just break. I know I've never smoked cigarettes, but you know, I did. You know, I was, when I started to kind of cut out the sugar or reduce the sugar, I felt hungry all the time. I was craving sugar.
Yeah.
It's like I was really craving it, and
well, I suppose it's, you know, what we're used to habitually. You know, if we're used to sugar, you know, we will crave it when we're giving it up. But you know, we're human after all. You know, but I think with the mindset that you have, and you're, you know, I think, you know, people do need to be disciplined in that they need to remember the long-term goal. You know, why are they giving up sugar, or why are they, you know, giving up drink, or why are they, you know, adopting this let's go for a walk every day and a bath every night to relax us, you know. Whatever it may be, why don't we just, you know, I think a lot more people are doing that now in very natural ways without realizing it. You know, they're listening to more music they like, they're playing Scrabble with the family instead of, you know, looking at their screens. You know, they're, as you are, engaging with their families, as opposed to, and using the time that we have together, as opposed to, you know, going into the surly, you know, oh my God, you know, what can I do? Because really it's out of our control. You know, it is out of our control.
Yeah. And I think if you can kind of have a look at what you can control and just worry about that, and don't worry about what's out of your control. And I kind of, you know, went through that. You know, when we had remember we had the first crash in 2009, 2010. You know, and it was tough on our business at the time. And I was like, oh my God, you know, what is going to happen? We're in real trouble here. But for me, it's like, oh, what can I actually control? And I focused on those areas and tried to make an impact in those areas. And I've kind of taken that kind of idea into this whole COVID. Like, I mean, I can't control what the government are going to do. I can only control what I can affect, and for me that's you know, keeping focused in what I want to do, you know, keep on pushing the whole nutrition, you know, what I've learned, and if I can share those skills onto other people, that's great. And if I can help companies with implementing new menus that, you know, that don't kind of they still have the impact in flavor and taste, but have also better nutritional values to them. You know, that's what I want to kind of focus on. So it's been a
functional nutrition.
Exactly.
Watch, but it's what time is it? It looks like it's nearly 22 now.
I think we're going to take some questions and answers. I think Rebecca's going to give us some there. So I think we're going to turn off our webcams now. And
no, you can keep them on there, Niall. You can keep them on.
Okay.
And I have the first question here is for Paula. So Paula, certain types of mushrooms are being used as adaptogens. Could you talk a little more about these and how they might affect our microbiome?
Right, I can't. No, I don't know much about adaptogens, but if there's anybody from TUD there, from the botanic course, they might be able to help us. But yes, there's a lot of, there are lion's manes, there are lots of mushrooms that seem to have health benefits. And to be honest, I don't think it's really certain, you know, the mechanisms of action of these, but many of them will have anti-carcinogenic compounds as well. Plus, I suppose, some are very nutritious because they contain vitamin D. And we know that vitamin D has a role not only in preventing respiratory infections like COVID, but also in the prevention of cancers as well. So I don't know much about adaptogens, to be honest, only that I decided I'd look at these alcohol-free drinks which contain adaptogens, and I'm loving them. I'm absolutely loving them because they taste amazing, and they taste like you're having something that's really like a big drink, like a spicy big drink, but no alcohol, which is fantastic. And you sleep really well. And actually, that's another thing we didn't talk about, sleep and how that affects your stress, you know, your circadian rhythm, increasing your stress. When we're stressed, obviously, that knocks out our ability to manage the balance of our hormones. So we can see cortisol levels going up. things like leptin sensitivity going down. We are more hungry. We have higher cravings, as Niall said, and more ghrelin, which makes us eat more and store fat. So stress can make us fat. And I think adaptogens are natural plant compounds, really, which we need to maybe explore a little bit and use maybe more in non-alcoholic drinks, and also in foods, because they may impart benefits in much the same way as phytochemicals in fruit and veg. So when I learned about fruit and veg and the benefits of fruit and veg, we were taught about fiber years ago. We were taught, about fiber really in the prevention of constipation, but it really didn't go further than digestive health. Now we know that fiber is the food of the good bacteria. We don't use it, we don't break it down, we don't absorb it, we need it for our microbiome, which in turn live in a symbiotic relationship with us. So we give them the fiber, they give us B vitamins, they give us, they produce short chain fatty acids in the gut, which help us to manage the immune response. So we can regulate that much better. So we can turn it on when it's necessary, and we can turn it off. And so there are a lot of interesting things in fruit and vegetables that we've now discovered, like flavonoids, anthocyanins being one type of a flavonoid, and these we know are anti-inflammatory. They contain antioxidants, a lot of these fruit and veg, which really help in terms of our immune response as well. So I don't know a lot about adaptogens, I'll put my hand up, but I'm very curious, and I think I will be learning about them more as they become a topic that we research. Does the person who asked the question want to come in and talk a little bit about mushrooms?
What we'll do is we'll move on to a question here for both of you, in terms of what dishes would you recommend that are high in vitamin D that are good for gut?
Okay. Well, I had a class last night with the culinary nutrition chefs, and a lovely lady from Malta came on, and she said, I've got a great acronym for oily fish, which is a really good source of vitamin D. So she said it's SMASH. So I thought, oh, that's great, oily fish and SMASH, because SMASH is salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring, SMASH. So any of those types of oily fish, fantastic source of vitamin D, which is really powerful. The other sources of vitamin D would be mushrooms contain a tiny little bit, and eggs contain a small amount, so you might get 1 microgram of vitamin D in an egg, not a huge amount, but they can help. So if you're having 7 eggs a week, it's certainly going to contribute towards vitamin D. Aside from those 3 foods, you have to really be drinking like something like a fortified milk, on a daily basis. Otherwise, it's really difficult to get enough vitamin D during the week. And so that's why the recommendation really is, at this latitude where we find ourselves in Northern Europe, we should be supplementing during the winter months. We need to really not rely too much on food for vitamin D. And even in the summer, it's questionable whether we make enough, because we cover, our skin with SPFs and skin protection. So I don't know. So now it's up to you to give us a lovely recipe for any of those foods, Niall. What would you do at home with that? Because I presume actually everybody who's listening probably is very good in the kitchen. They're probably all chefs.
Yeah, I'm sure they have a lot of dishes they can pull from. I guess for me it's it's trying to get my children to eat oily fish has been a real challenge. So I try and come up with dishes just from home that I think they would eat. So anything that I'm kind of reducing saturated fats. So I would, I might do a really nice kind of oily fish curry, and using natural spicing with ginger and garlic, onions, and all really good properties in there. And they will eat something like that. If I was in the restaurant, obviously depending on the style of the restaurant, I'd take that up another level, and I'd really be looking at what produce is in season, and working with the seasons, and marrying the foods. But you're right, oily fish is the best source. So yeah, whatever, you know, I really, whatever you think really works. And, you know, like it's very hard to tell chefs, you know, what they should be
Yeah,
cooking, because everyone
but
has their own style.
yeah, so it's so true. Yeah, but I think it's a really valid point about kids. You know, how do we get them to eat, you know, one portion of oily and one portion of white
Yeah.
fish a week, which is the recommendation. And I do know that, like, certainly when I was young, oily fish was quite a strong tasting, you know, and
Yeah.
also if you smell it in the kitchen, I know you shouldn't smell fish if it's fresh, but, you know, often we do smell it, unfortunately. And, you know, that can be a turn off for kids. So I remember one of the things I did with my son was I used to use a lot of white fish and maybe, you know, prawns. So I'd use something that kind of is a bit tasteless, that would take up a nice tomato garlicky sauce, you know, and the flavor of that, and just blend in, and then a small little bit of salmon. So, you know, tiny little bites of salmon, as opposed to one large, you know, cutlet or one large darn of salmon on the plate, which might be a bit too much for small children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great, thank you both. An interesting one here, just in terms of how chefs are kind of adapting to this new lifestyle, is how can people adapt their diet or eating patterns as a way to help their mood as they move from an active to a sedentary work life?
Okay.
That's
Well,
a really interesting one, Paul, isn't it?
yeah.
'Cause
Well,
we're all doing it now.
yeah, we are all doing it, and I'm not going to plug my book, but I'm going to plug the traditional Mediterranean diet, because, you know, if you can adopt the pillars of the Mediterranean diet, that is really a very helpful way. It's the pattern over time that counts. And so we talked about, you know, oily fish and the omega-3s and the vitamin D. So omega-3, really important for two components, EPA and DHA. Now, DHA is the component, it's a structure component of the brain. We build our brains with DHA. So very important, obviously, for pregnant mums and the fetus. But EPA is important for cognitive function right throughout life. So, you know, the Mediterranean diet, very high in omega-3, those types of fats, those polyunsaturated fats that we've mentioned, like the oily fish, and then the monounsaturated fats like the olive oil and the olives. So, you know, even if we look at what we're snacking at, you know, in lockdown, you know, get rid of the crisps, get rid of the highly processed refined carbs, get rid of them. You know, focus on good carbs, your high fiber carbs, which are going to give you energy to exercise. They're the best fuel for the working muscle. It's the one that we've adapted to using. And we can use a little bit of fat while we're exercising, but carbs are really our limiting factor. So we need the good carbs. But, you know, snacking on highly refined carbs is really what we do, because if you look at the array of snacks out there which come into our houses from supermarkets, they're all high carb and highly refined. So get rid of those. Look at handfuls of nuts, which are very heart healthy, and also can be brain healthy as well. So the omega-3s that are found in walnuts are brilliant. You know, but then every nut has something to offer. You know, almonds, vitamin E for your heart, Brazil nuts, selenium for your thyroid. You know, so, you know, have a mix of these things. So olives, snack on olives, snack on handfuls of nuts. Snack on something that's, you know, protein rich, like an egg. You know, boil 6 eggs, have them on the countertop. Come down and get a boiled egg if you're hungry, or, you know, go into the kitchen. I say come down because my study is upstairs. You know, have the fruit bowl ready for your kids to dive into, as opposed to the biscuit tin. We're very, very triggered by what we see. And, you know, emotionally we are drained. We can't be on, you know, in a mindful state all the time, much as we'd like to be. So very often we're walking around on automatic pilot, and we're nervous and tense and thinking of the next, you know, bill to be paid, the next deadline, the next talk we have to do on Zoom without it breaking down, the next this, that, and the other. Make it easy. Make the habit that you want to adopt easy. So that means clear out your presses, clear out your freezer, clear out your fridge, and make sure you try and adapt a more Mediterranean style diet. And by that I mean good fats, good carbs, more plant proteins that are sustainable for both your body and brain and the planet in general, and then really lots and lots of fruit and veg. So one of the pillars that, if we could adopt, would benefit hugely the population, would be that if we could think of our dinner and lunch in terms of a plate, and half it visually, half the plate whether it's a compound dish that you're making or whatever it is, but half the plate should be fruit and veg, you know, or salad and veg. You know, something that's providing the fiber, the flavonoids, the antioxidants, the vitamins, the minerals, and the protection that we get from those types of foods. What do you think, Niall? Any?
Yeah, you know, I think I have adapted the Mediterranean diet, and as you know, like in the masters, I done a lot of research and work on it, and yeah, like for us at home now, I've reduced the meat content, the red meat of what we're using, and most of the time it's the vegetables that are playing the kind of star role. I also make it, you know, habit that every week we have at least one vegan dish, and I know that's probably easy for a chef to be able to produce a really tasty vegan dish, but I think it's important, and I know I can just see the change in my family and my girls, that, you know, they're more, they're going kind of the other way. They're not really eating a lot of meat anymore, and it's more kind of vegetables, proteins, and then you know, if they're looking for something, I let them snack on fruit and nuts, and that's what I do myself. Like if I want to go for a run, I'll take a handful of nuts with me, and I'll have some walnuts. Yeah, so I think it's making kind of slow changes and not being too drastic, and gradually over time it'll gradually just change, and it'll be natural.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because veganism and vegetarianism is definitely growing. I think the Mediterranean style diet is more flexitarian, so it is largely vegetable based, or not vegetable based, but plant based. So you've got, you know, peas, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, you know, whole grains, you know, so they're all plant based foods. But veganism, it would be brilliant, and I know that on the course at the moment we have a vegan chef, which is, I think she's a vegan chef, which would be fantastic, because I definitely see a role for people, you know, who are skilled in the kitchen, you know, who are qualified chefs, to be able to educate young vegans, you know, to say, look, you know, it's not about pulling the meat off the plate and just eating what's left. You've got to make sure that your dish is maybe once a week really high in iodine. Or, you know, where are you going to get your B12 from? You know, what about your calcium if you're not eating dairy? Where are you going to get that from? Let's make a tofu rich, you know, a stir fry, which is going to supply some calcium because it's fortified. Or iron, you know. So there are, you know, it's easy to you know, to say, right, I'm not eating any animal products, but the harder, more difficult thing is to say, I'm going to eat a really delicious diet with lots of diversity. And I'm also going to make it them easy recipes that I can do as a third level student or as a young working person. And I'm going to go the right way for, you know, my philosophy of life, you know, which is, you know, about animal welfare and the planet and sustainability, or whatever that might be, or just for health reasons, but that they do it right. And it would be brilliant to see chefs like yourself who've got the qualification in culinary nutrition now to lead the way, because you have the nutrition skills and you have the culinary skills.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Okay, guys, we have time for one more quick question, and it is, do either of you have a preferred superfood or go-to ingredient that is a must for your diet on a daily or ongoing basis to support your brain and overall well-being?
Interesting one. For me, I like to have my kefir every day. So for me, it's a ritual in the morning. I'll make a kefir before I start the day. So yeah, so probably that's for me. That's kind of one food that I have every day.
That sounds lovely. I'd love to get into the habit of that. Yeah, I don't have a food. I'm a bit of a glutton. I like lots of different foods, and I like variety. And I kind of I say that because I'm aware as well of the importance of diversity in the diet. So I don't tend to overeat anything. If there was one or two vegetables I'd earmark, as in that I'd eat a hell of a lot of: tomatoes, which are full of lycopene and other things, carotenoids, and also probably peppers. I love those two, red peppers and tomatoes. But I mean, I eat everything really. So I don't tend to classify foods really as superfoods, even though, 10, 15 years ago when it was popular to write a headline, what superfoods should be in your diet, I probably would have listed a lot of fruits and vegetables. In the Mediterranean diet, like there are, you could say olive oil or superfood. A superfood is really, I suppose, there's no definition, it's a marketing term. So
Sure.
yeah, so I don't tend to kind of say things are superfoods. I think we need to talk about super diets, and they're not restrictive diets. They're diets that allow you to eat what you want to eat, but they're balanced and they're full of diversity, and they're less likely to contain processed and highly refined foods. By that I mean as well, and just so that I'm not because I'm conscious as well. I used to always ask the chefs, and I'm sure I asked Niall's class as well, what do you guys eat? And I was always a bit shocked that, they feed everyone this most delicious food, but sometimes they forget about themselves and their guilty pleasure might be pot noodles or something. I remember the Japanese chef from Cork, down there, who has the wonderful restaurant, and Takati, I can't remember his name, but his guilty pleasure, I read, were pot noodles, and I was going, what? MSG ridden pot noodles, processed pot noodles, but I'm sure maybe they weren't. They were probably his own homemade noodles. But it's funny that I think that it's what we eat and what we don't eat, and what we don't eat for health should be highly refined foods. Now, I'm not talking about a tin of tomatoes. That is a processed food, but it's minimally processed. They're tomatoes. And basically maybe, sometimes they add in a bit of salt or seasoning or garlic. That's it. They're not chemicals added in. They're not preservatives or additives or artificial sweeteners or whatever. So, that's what I'm talking about. No ultra processed foods, or as little as possible. That is important for health as well, just as much as what you do include.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paula. And thank you, Niall. We are out of time. Thank you both so much for your time today. And, thank you for taking part in the event today and providing us with such an insight into your experiences with food and mental health. Thank you to you, our audience, for joining today's session. We hope you found the discussion insightful, inspiring, and relatable for your own mental health. In the handout section of your screen, you should be able to find two handouts. One is a list of mental health supports available in Ireland to you should you need them. And another one is a handout of Niall and Paula's top tips to take away from today's session. So do take a look at both of them. This, unfortunately, is our final webinar in our month-long campaign, and we hope that you found this entire campaign to be informative and helpful on both the personal and a professional level. If you missed any of our webinars or blog posts this month, they are all available on chefnetwork.ie. Thank you from all of the team at Chef Network and our Mind Your Mind partners, BWG Foodservice.